Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to unpack something deeply fascinating today, and honestly, incredibly common. We're looking at the hidden psychology behind why some people will absolutely refuse assistance, even when it's just painfully obvious to everyone around them that they need it. I mean, if you've ever been super frustrated by someone pushing you away when you're literally just trying to lend a hand, or hey, if you happen to be that person yourself, this breakdown is going to completely change how you see those interactions.
Okay, let's dive right into this. I want you to actually picture someone specific in your life right now. Maybe it's a coworker, your partner, a sibling, or, maybe it is you. Think about that person who is just visibly drowning in stress. Their schedule is overflowing, they look totally exhausted, the pressure is mounting. And yet, the absolute second you offer a lifeline, what do they say? I got it. Or don't worry, I'm okay. Even when they are so clearly not okay. Well, psychology tells us that what we're witnessing in these moments isn't just simple independence. Actually, for these individuals, the act of asking for help feels significantly harder and way more painful than just suffering alone.
So, the crucial point here is how we label this. We tend to call these people stubbornly independent, right? Or we think of their self-reliance as just this quirky personality trait. But the reality is far more complex. What looks like pure, unbreakable self-reliance is actually a deeply ingrained survival habit. It's a defense mechanism. Their brain has essentially learned a strict set of rules about how the world works. And to understand why they stay silent, well, we have to look at the history that wrote those rules.
All right, pattern number 1, past echoes and broken trust.
To really wrap our heads around this, think of an everyday analogy, the broken vending machine. Imagine you go up to a vending machine, you put in your hard-earned money, you press the button, and nothing comes out. You try again the next day, and again, absolutely nothing. Eventually, you just stop putting your money in, right? You figure out another way to get what you need. Well, for people who struggle to ask for help, emotional vulnerability works the exact same way. They learned early on in life that putting their emotional currency out into the world, asking for support, was exactly like using a broken machine. The support didn't come when they were stressed. They had to figure things out alone. So, depending on others started to feel fundamentally unreliable. Doing everything alone isn't necessarily what they want, it's just what feels familiar.
Let's look a little closer at what actually broke that machine in the first place. When they did try to reach out in the past, maybe they felt totally dismissed. Or they finally opened up only to be told they were just overreacting. Or maybe they were completely ignored when they desperately needed comfort. Experiencing these specific invalidating reactions teaches the brain a really powerful, really painful lesson. Reaching out leads nowhere. It completely breaks their trust that others will truly understand their needs. So instead of risking that terrible sting of rejection again, they just stop asking, even when the need is incredibly real.
Moving on to pattern number 2, the fear of the burden.
There's this absolutely powerful quote from our source material that hits the nail on the head here. Silence feels less heavy than feeling like a burden. For a lot of people, asking for help means admitting something is hard, which kind of feels like losing control. They're so used to being the strong one who handles everything for everyone else that showing their own struggle feels completely, terribly exposing. The sheer guilt of potentially annoying, stressing, or inconveniencing someone else stops them dead in their tracks. So they just keep it all inside.
And this brilliantly illustrates our next analogy, the overflowing backpack. Picture this. Imagine you're walking alongside a friend who is carrying a massive, heavy, practically overflowing backpack. They're already sweating, right? Struggling under the weight. Now imagine you have a handful of heavy pebbles in your pocket. Would you ask your friend to carry your pebbles? No way! Of course not. You'd think, man, they already have enough going on. I can't add to their load. Well, people who refuse help constantly view everyone else as carrying an overflowing backpack. They silently believe their own struggles are just too much to add to anyone else's life. And this mental image is exactly why they stay quiet and keep wearing that mask of the strong one.
Let's move to pattern number 3 and see how this builds, minimizing the pain.
Okay, we have literally all done this, right? The check engine light. The check engine light pops on in your car, but the car is still driving. The brakes work, the radio plays, so you tell yourself, it's fine, it's really not that serious. People who struggle to ask for help do the exact same thing with their own emotional and physical warning signs. Because they're technically still functioning, still going to work, still paying the bills, still smiling, they continually downplay their own pain. They ignore their internal check engine light because addressing it would require taking the car to the mechanic, which means finally asking for help. So to justify this, they actively use comparison as a tool to stay silent. They're constantly weighing my pain against their problems. They'll look at a friend going through a tough breakup or a coworker dealing with an illness, and they immediately tell themselves, wow, other people have much bigger problems than me. By doing this, they make their own needs feel completely invalid. The logic is simple, really. When you convince yourself that your pain is small, asking for help feels entirely unnecessary, and honestly almost selfish.
Which brings us to pattern number 4, the silent wish. We can visualize this as the message in a bottle. Think about someone stranded on a deserted island. They don't have a megaphone to shout to passing ships, so they write a desperate note, stuff it in a bottle, and toss it into the ocean, just hoping the waves will carry it to someone who will rescue them. This is the part most people don't talk about. People who refuse help actually do want support, but instead of making a direct call for help, they drop subtle hints, a heavy sigh, an offhand comment about being tired, a slight shift in their mood. They're tossing a message in a bottle into the sea of their relationships, secretly hoping someone will just intuitively notice they're stranded. Because the raw, unspoken truth of the whole shebang is this: they do want help, they do want support, they just really wish someone would notice it on their own. Why? Because the act of directly asking, of literally looking someone in the eye and saying, I am failing right now and I need you, feels terribly emotionally exposing. It triggers all those old fears of rejection and being a burden. It is simply more deeply uncomfortable for them to ask directly than it is to just suffer in silence and hope someone figures it out.
Finally, Section 5, Unlearning Old Survival Patterns.
I really want to hammer home the core takeaway from today's explainer. What looks like ironclad strength on the outside is very often just an old survival pattern on the inside. That stubborn independence, it's a learned defense mechanism. It was built to protect them from vulnerability, from feeling like a burden, and from the deep pain of rejection. Recognizing this completely changes the dynamic. When they say I got it, you now know it might actually mean I'm terrified to show you that I don't.
So I want to leave you with this final, kind of provocative thought to take with you. Think back to that person you pictured at the very beginning. Who in your life is wearing the mask of the strong one, but is silently tossing messages in a bottle, just hoping you'll notice their struggle, without them having to say a single word? The next time you see someone drowning but refusing a lifeline, try to look past the I'm okay. You might just be the one to finally show them that it's safe to ask for help. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.